There is nothing wrong with your alarm clock. There is nothing wrong with your willpower either. The reason you cannot get out of bed at 5 in the morning has almost nothing to do with the morning. It was decided the night before, in a series of small choices you did not even notice you were making. And until you understand that, no new alarm, no new app, no new motivational video will change a single thing about your mornings. Let me tell you what it costs to keep sleeping through this. It is not the hour. 1 hour a day sounds small, but 1 hour a day is 365 hours a year. That is 9 full working weeks. 9 weeks of writing the book, building the business, learning the language, healing the body, praying, thinking, becoming. Every single year. And you are not losing it in one dramatic moment you could point to and grieve. You are losing it in 15-minute pieces, snooze by snooze, in a room where nobody is watching and nobody will ever tell you what it costs. Here is what most people never realize. The person who wakes up early is not fighting harder than you. They are not more disciplined than you. They have simply arranged their life so that waking up early is the easiest thing available to them. Think of your day as a river. Water does not choose its path. It flows wherever the land allows. All day long, your energy behaves the same way. It does not go where you command it. It goes where the ground slopes. Most people wake up exhausted and conclude that they are lazy. They are not lazy. They have simply been digging their riverbed downhill toward exhaustion for years, then blaming the water for arriving there. Change the ground and the water changes direction on its own. That is the whole of what I am going to teach you. 1. Stop trying to wake up earlier. Start trying to fall asleep earlier. A man I once spoke with had tried to become a morning person 11 separate times. 11. He could recite the pattern from memory. Sunday night, full of hope, he sets the alarm for 5. Monday, he actually does it. He is euphoric. He tells people about it. Tuesday is harder. Wednesday he hits snooze once. By Thursday he is sleeping until 7:30 and he feels like a fraud. He told me he had begun to think there was something structurally wrong with him. A defect. Some people are just wired for mornings, he said, and I am not one of them. I asked him one question. What time did you go to bed on Wednesday night? He went quiet. Then he said, around 1. There it was. He had not been failing to wake up early. He had been trying to survive on 4 hours of sleep for 4 days in a row and calling it a character flaw. No human being alive can do that. Not one. Here is the struggle you know so well. The morning is where you feel the failure. So the morning is where you attack the problem. You set the alarm across the room. You buy the sunrise lamp. You promise yourself, out loud, that tomorrow will be different. And every one of those solutions is aimed at the wrong end of the day. You are trying to fix the mouth of the river by shouting at the water. Most people fail here because falling asleep earlier feels like losing something, and waking up earlier feels like gaining something. The night is the only part of the day nobody is asking anything of you. Nobody is emailing. Nobody needs feeding. That late hour scrolling in the dark is not laziness, it is the only unclaimed territory you have left, and you are defending it. Understand that and stop calling yourself weak. So here is what you actually do today. Do not move your wake time at all. Leave it exactly where it is. Instead, move your bedtime back by 20 minutes. Not 2 hours. 20 minutes. Hold it for 4 nights. Then 20 more. Your body will accept 20 minutes without protest. It will fight 2 hours every time. In 3 weeks you will be going to bed 90 minutes earlier than you are tonight, and you will barely have noticed it happening. You are not building a wake-up habit. You are building a sleep habit. The morning is only the receipt. Move the bedtime, and the morning moves itself. Fix the source, and the river arrives on its own. But there is a reason 20 minutes feels impossible even when you agree it is the right thing, and that reason has a name. 2. Name the hour you are actually protecting. There is a phenomenon researchers gave a rather blunt name to some years ago: revenge bedtime procrastination. The idea is simple and it will probably describe your last 3 nights exactly. People with low control over their daytime hours refuse to sleep, not because they are not tired, but because those late hours are the only time that genuinely belongs to them. It is not a sleep problem. It is a freedom problem wearing a sleep problem's clothing. I remember a woman who worked as a nurse and had 2 small children. She told me she absolutely knew, that staying up until midnight watching television she did not even like was destroying her. She could describe the damage precisely. And she did it anyway, every single night, for years. When I asked her why, she said something I have never forgotten. She said, because from 10 to midnight, nobody wants anything from me. That is not indiscipline. That is a person starving for ownership of her own life and taking it in the only place she could find it, the worst possible place, at the highest possible price. Here is why most people fail at this. They try to delete the hour. They tell themselves they will simply stop, cold, out of sheer resolve. And the hour comes roaring back within a week, because you cannot subtract a need. You can only relocate it. Every night you take away the one window where you belong to yourself, and you offer nothing in exchange, your body will quietly conspire to steal it back. So do not delete it. Move it. Tonight, decide what you are actually looking for in that late hour. Was it silence? Was it entertainment? Was it the feeling that the day was yours? Whatever it was, schedule it into the first hour of tomorrow morning instead. If you were watching a show, watch it at 6 in the morning with coffee. Seriously, do exactly that. If it was quiet, take the quiet at 6. If it was reading, read at 6. You are not asking yourself to give up anything at all. You are asking yourself to take the same thing 8 hours earlier, when it is free instead of expensive. The freedom is not gone. It has just changed address. And something strange happens after about a week of this. The morning hour starts to feel better than the night hour ever did. Because at 10 at night your mind is spent and you are consuming out of exhaustion. At 6 in the morning it is the same activity with a rested brain and no dread attached to it. Same water, different ground. The hour was never the enemy. The hour was your last piece of sovereignty and you were paying for it with your entire next day. Move it, and you keep both. Now, you may do all of this correctly and still find yourself lying in bed wide awake at 11, staring at the ceiling, furious. That is a different problem. And it has a physical cause. 3. Understand that light is not a mood. It is a command. Deep inside your brain sits a cluster of cells no bigger than a grain of rice. It is your master clock, and it has one primary job: read the light and set the time. It does not care what your calendar says. It does not care that you have a meeting at 7. It cares about photons, and it obeys them absolutely. Here is what almost nobody has been told. That clock is most sensitive in the first hour after you wake and in the last hours before you sleep. Morning light does not just wake you up today. It sets a timer that determines when you will feel sleepy roughly 14 to 16 hours later, which means the reason you could not fall asleep last night at 10 was decided by what you did at 7 yesterday morning. I knew a man who worked from home, in a room with a small window and the blinds drawn, in front of a screen for 11 hours a day. He had not seen direct sunlight before noon in 3 years. He was on his second sleep medication and he was convinced he had a permanent medical condition. He did not. He had simply been living, biologically speaking, in a cave, and then wondering why his body could not tell what time it was. The struggle, you get in bed on time, phone away, lights off, doing everything right, and your body simply will not switch off. Your mind starts producing a slideshow of every conversation you have ever mishandled. You lie there feeling like a failure at something as basic as being unconscious. Most people fail here because they attack the night. Melatonin, blackout curtains, white noise, magnesium. All of it is downstream. The signal that tells your body when night begins was sent 15 hours earlier, and if it was never sent, no supplement will manufacture it for you. So here is your action, and it is almost embarrassingly simple. Within 30 minutes of waking tomorrow, get outside for 10 minutes. Not through a window. Glass strips out most of what you need. Outside. Overcast is fine. A cloudy morning still delivers many times more light than your brightest indoor room. Coffee outside. Walk to the corner. Stand in the doorway. 10 minutes. Then, in the last hour before bed, do the opposite. Dim everything. Lamps instead of overheads. Let your room get dark like a room in the world used to get dark. Bright morning. Dim evening. That is the entire instruction. Light in the morning is not a wellness ritual. It is you reaching into your own body and moving the hands of the clock forward. Do it for 5 days and you will feel sleepy at a reasonable hour without deciding to, without willpower, without fighting anything at all. Bright light early, low light late. The ground slopes, and the water follows. But there is one more thing you are doing in the evening that undoes all of it, and it is probably sitting on your desk right now. 4. Move the last cup back 6 hours. Caffeine has a half-life of roughly 5 to 6 hours in most adults. That word matters more than people realize. Half-life does not mean it is gone in 5 hours. It means half of it is still circulating. So the coffee you drank at 4 in the afternoon, half of it is still in your bloodstream at 10 at night, and a quarter of it is still there at 4 in the morning. And here is the cruel part. It does not necessarily stop you from falling asleep. It quietly reduces the deep, slow-wave sleep that actually restores you. So you sleep 8 hours and wake up feeling like you slept 5. Then, feeling exhausted, you reach for more coffee, later in the day, and you have built yourself a perfect closed loop. Tired because of caffeine. Caffeinated because you are tired. A young man once told me he was certain caffeine had no effect on him. He could drink an espresso at 9 at night and fall asleep fine. He was right about falling asleep. He was wrong about what happened afterward. He was falling asleep from sheer sleep debt and then spending the night in shallow water, never once going deep. He woke up every morning of his adult life feeling like he was made of wet sand, and he thought that was just what being alive felt like. The struggle: you do not feel wired at night. You feel tired. So the idea that caffeine is the problem sounds absurd. That is exactly why it survives. It never announces itself. Most people fail here because they try to quit entirely, which is unnecessary and miserable. They go 3 days without coffee, get a splitting headache, decide the whole thing was nonsense, and go back to worse habits than before. Do not quit. Just move it. Draw a line at 2 in the afternoon. Everything before the line, keep exactly as it is. Have your morning coffee. Have your second one. After the line, nothing, no coffee, no energy drinks, no strong tea, no dark chocolate at 9 at night. One line, one time, no negotiating. Do it for 7 nights. That is all I am asking. 7. You will notice at first not in how you fall asleep, but in how you wake, the difference between climbing out of a hole and simply opening your eyes. Same amount of sleep, different quality of sleep, same hours in bed, entirely different morning. Move the line, and the mornings arrive different. And once the mornings arrive different, you face the last physical obstacle, the 90 seconds where all of this is won or lost. 5. Win the first 90 seconds, and the rest of the day is downhill. There is a state your brain enters immediately upon waking called sleep inertia. It is real, it is measurable, and it lasts anywhere from a few minutes to half an hour. In that window, your reasoning is genuinely impaired, in some studies, more impaired than after a night of drinking. Your judgment is temporarily untrustworthy. Now think about what you have been doing. Every morning, you have been putting the single most important decision of your day, whether to get up, into the hands of the least capable version of your mind that will exist in the next 24 hours. Of course it says stay in bed. It is not lying to you. It is simply not qualified to answer. I once heard a woman describe her breakthrough, and it was not spiritual in the slightest. She had failed at mornings for a decade. What finally worked was this: she stopped asking herself whether to get up. She removed the question entirely. Alarm goes off, feet hit the floor, walk to the kitchen. No deliberation, no evaluation, no checking how she felt about it. She said the whole thing took about 15 seconds and she was not really conscious for any of it. And she said the strangest part was that after a few weeks, the desire to stay in bed simply stopped showing up. It had nothing left to argue with. Here is the struggle. You wake up and you negotiate. Just 10 more minutes. I was up late. I have earned this. I will start Monday. And the negotiation feels honest. It feels like you are weighing something. You are not. You are being talked out of your own life by a version of you that will not exist in 10 minutes and will not have to live with the consequences. Most people fail because they wait to feel ready. But readiness is not a starting condition. It is a byproduct. Motion comes first. Feeling follows. You will never once, in your entire life, wake up wanting to wake up. Stop waiting for it. It is not coming. So here is what you do. Decide tonight, in advance, the exact first physical action of tomorrow. Not a plan, one action. Feet on floor. Then a second action you have set up the night before, clothes laid out, kettle filled, shoes by the door. Make the first 90 seconds a sequence you can execute half asleep, because half asleep is precisely the condition you will be in. And put the phone out of arm's reach. Not for discipline's sake, because reaching for the phone hands your first conscious minutes to someone else's agenda before you have had a single thought of your own. Do not decide in the morning. Decide the night before, and let the morning simply carry out orders. 90 seconds of momentum buys you 14 hours of it. Now, the first 5 points fix the mechanics. Points 6 through 9 deal with the harder part, the part nobody talks about. What happens once the mornings actually work, and why most people still quit anyway. 6. Give the morning a reason, or it will not survive the third week. Something happens around day 18 that nobody warns you about. The novelty is gone. You are not proud of yourself anymore. The alarm goes off, you get up, and you sit there in the quiet, and a thought arrives that is far more dangerous than tiredness ever was. The thought is, what is this for? I once knew a man who woke at 5 for 2 straight months and then stopped in a single week. He was not exhausted. He was not sick. He told me he simply ran out of reasons. He would get up, make coffee, sit down, and then scroll on his phone for 40 minutes and go to work. He had won the hard part and had nothing waiting on the other side of it. He said the worst part was not the failing. It was the discovering that he had wanted to be a person who woke up early far more than he had wanted anything to do with the time. That is the struggle almost nobody admits to. You have made waking early into an identity instead of a tool. You want the photograph of the sunrise. You want to be someone who does this. And an identity with no work attached to it collapses the moment the applause in your own head goes quiet. Most people fail here because they think the discipline creates the purpose. It does not. It has never worked in that order. Purpose creates discipline. A mother does not need an alarm to wake for a crying child. A man building something he actually believes in does not lie there negotiating. The wanting comes first, and the waking is only the shadow it casts. So do this tonight. Write down one sentence, describing what the first hour of tomorrow is for. Not a category, a specific, physical task. Not work on the business. Write draft the first 2 paragraphs of the sales page. Not get fit. Write run to the second lamppost and back. Something so small and so precise that you cannot argue with it at 6 in the morning. Because the argument requires thinking and you will not be thinking. Then put that piece of paper where your hand lands when the alarm goes off. You are not waking up early. You are waking up for something. The moment the something disappears, the waking disappears with it every time, for everyone, without exception. The alarm is not the reason. The alarm is only the messenger. And once you have a reason, you will run into the next wall, which is not physical at all. and which will hit you on a Wednesday you did not see coming. 7. Build a system that survives a bad night. You will have a bad night, not might will. A child gets sick, a flight is delayed, a friend calls at 11 with something serious. Life does not consult your sleep schedule. Here is what almost everybody does next, and here is where 4 good weeks die. They wake up wrecked, they sleep until 9, and then they decide that the streak is broken. And the moment it is broken, some quiet part of the mind says, well, that is over then. Not consciously, not in words, but the next night they stay up until 1. Because what would be the point, and by Friday they are exactly where they started and telling themselves they are just not a morning person after all. I remember a woman who had held a 5 o'clock wake time for 41 days. She counted them. On day 42 her mother went into the hospital and she was up half the night. She slept until 10 the next morning, and she told me she cried, not about her mother, about the number. 41 days, gone. She said it felt like the count had been the thing keeping her honest, and without it she had nothing. She did not wake early again for 8 months. That is what perfectionism does. It does not make you disciplined. It makes you fragile. A streak is a beautiful thing right up until the moment it becomes the only thing holding the habit up, and then it is a liability. You did not lose 41 days. You lost one. The 41 are still in your body, in your clock, in your evidence about yourself. Nothing was returned. Most people fail here because they built a habit that requires perfect conditions, and perfect conditions do not exist for anyone anywhere. So decide your rule in advance, today, while you are calm. Here it is: never miss twice. 1 bad night is weather. 2 is a decision. After a bad night, do not try to be a hero, do not attempt 5 in the morning on 4 hours of sleep, because that will genuinely hurt you and you will associate the whole project with suffering. Instead, get up an hour later than usual, get outside into the light immediately, and go to bed on time that night. You are back inside 2 days without ever having had to restart anything. And stop counting. Delete the streak. Keep the practice. Missing once is nothing. Missing twice is the beginning of something. That distinction is the entire difference between people who keep this for a month and people who keep it for a decade. The habit that can break is not the strong one. The habit that can bend and return is. But there is a subtler failure than the bad night, and it disguises itself as success. 8. Protect the morning from the day. Something predictable happens once your mornings start working. They start producing value. And the moment anything produces value, the world comes for it. You get up at 5 and it is beautiful and quiet, and then one Tuesday you have an early call so you take it at 6:30. Then a colleague finds out you are up early and asks for a 7 o'clock. Then you start checking email at 5:15, just to get ahead, because you are up anyway. And within 2 months the hour you fought so hard for has been colonized entirely. You are still waking at 5. You are simply starting work 2 hours earlier than everyone else and calling it discipline. A man once told me, with real bitterness, that becoming a morning person was the worst thing he ever did. He had gotten up early to write. Within a year he was getting up early to clear his inbox before the office opened, and he had not written a word in 9 months. He said, I did not gain an hour. I gave one away and never noticed the transaction. That is the struggle nobody prepares you for. You assume the threat to your morning is your own weakness. It is not. The threat is other people's urgency, and it arrives dressed as opportunity. Most people fail here because they never defined what the morning was for, so it defaulted to whatever shouted loudest. An undefended hour does not stay empty. It fills. So draw the border, tonight, explicitly. Name the exact minutes, say, 5 to 6:30, and name what may enter and what may not. No email before the border closes. No messages. No calls scheduled inside it. If someone asks for a 7 o'clock meeting and your border ends at 6:30, say yes without a second thought. If they ask for 6, say you have something. You do have something. It is the most important appointment on your calendar and the only one nobody else will ever defend for you. And here is the part that will feel strange. No one will ever thank you for this. There is no external reward for protecting an hour that produces nothing visible for months. You will be the only witness. An unguarded hour belongs to whoever wants it most. Guard it, and it belongs to you. That is the mechanics finished. But there is one final thing standing between you and this, and it is not in your schedule. It is in the story you tell about yourself. 9. Stop describing yourself as a night person. You have said it 100 times. I am just not a morning person. I do my best work at night. My brain does not switch on until 10. And every time you have said it, it felt like honesty, like self-knowledge, like maturity, even accepting who you are instead of fighting it. But listen carefully to what that sentence actually does. It is not a description. It is a permission slip. It ends the conversation before it starts. It converts a set of habits, which can be changed, into a fixed trait, which cannot. And once something is a trait, there is nothing left to do about it. and that is exactly why the sentence is so comfortable. It retires you from the effort with your dignity intact. Now, there is real variation in human chronotypes. Some people genuinely do run later than others, but the honest research suggests that variation covers a window of a couple of hours, not the 6-hour gap most people are describing. The rest is not biology. The rest is caffeine at 4, screens at midnight, no daylight before noon, and 11 years of telling yourself a sentence until it hardened into fact. I remember a woman who had called herself a night owl since she was 19. She said it the way people state their blood type. Then her work changed and she had no choice, and within about 6 weeks she was waking at 5:30 without an alarm. She said the disorienting part was not the tiredness. It was realizing she had been carrying a belief about her own nature for 20 years that had never been tested once. 2 decades of certainty, dismantled in a month and a half. Most people fail here because they wait to feel like a morning person before they behave like one. It runs the other way. You do not become the kind of person who wakes early and then start waking early. You wake early, badly, and inconsistently, for a few weeks, and then, slowly, the evidence changes what you believe about yourself. So here is the last action, and it costs nothing. Stop saying the sentence out loud, to others, to yourself. When someone asks, do not say I am not a morning person. Say I am working on my mornings. That is not positive thinking. It is simply refusing to keep testifying against yourself in a case that was never actually proven. The identity does not come first. The evidence does. And here is what all 9 of these things have been circling. Music. You have been treating this as a problem of willpower, as if somewhere out there is a version of you with more grit who could simply force it. That person does not exist and never has. Every single thing I have described to you today happens before the moment you think the decision is being made. The bedtime, the light, the caffeine, the reason, the border, the sentence you say about yourself, all of it is upstream. By the time the alarm rings, the outcome has already been determined by a dozen small choices you made when it was easy to make them. That is the whole insight. You do not win the morning in the morning. You never did. You win it at 2 in the afternoon when you skip the coffee. You win it at 7 when you step outside into the light. You win it at 9:40 when you dim the lamps. You win it the night before when you put the shoes by the door and the note on the table. And then the morning simply arrives and collects what you already paid for. The river does not choose. The ground decides. So, the shape of it. Move your bedtime, not your wake time. 20 minutes at a time. Find the hour you were protecting and move it to dawn instead of deleting it. 10 minutes of outdoor light within 30 minutes of waking, dim light in the last hour before bed. Last caffeine at 2. Decide the first 90 seconds the night before and execute without negotiating. Give the hour a specific job written on paper. Never miss twice, and stop counting streaks. Draw a border around the hour and defend it against other people's urgency. And stop saying the sentence that retires you from your own life. 9 things, but do not do 9 things. Here is your one instruction for today. Tonight, go to bed 20 minutes earlier than you did last night, and put one object, a book, a pair of shoes, a note, where your hand will land tomorrow morning. That is it. That is everything I am asking. 20 minutes and one object. Because the version of you that gets up at 5, that writes the thing, that runs the distance, that sits in the quiet before the world starts asking, that person is not waiting somewhere in the future to be discovered. That person is being built tonight, in the dark, in a decision so small that nobody, including you, will think it mattered. The sunrise is not going to change you. What you do the evening before will. Go build the ground. The water knows where to go.